dismantling of Zionism. And that's difficult for people. It's difficult because, first of all, many people in the movement here don't even use the Z word. They say, don't use the Z word. Don't say Zionism. It's complicated. People will not understand. You will be thought of as being an anti-Semite, which of course is what's happened to me and many, many others. But we have to talk about Zionism. The reason that we have the genocide in Gaza is because of Zionism. It's not a mistake. It comes directly from the ideology of Zionism, which is intrinsically, as I said in court, a racist ideology, an inherently imperialist and genocidal ideology. It always was, it always will be, until it's ended. It won't be racist and genocidal when it's ended because it won't have any effect. Now I want to talk about that in particular because I think people sometimes, because they're reluctant to think or talk about Zionism, are reluctant to think or talk about its effects, not just in terms of genocide in Palestine, but its effects in this country. Zionism is not just something called the Israel lobby. Now, of course, there are Israel lobby groups in this country, in America, in France and Germany and everywhere else, the 40-odd countries that the Zionist movement is formally organised. But there is something wider than the Israel lobby, and that's called the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement is a much, much wider organisation, a set of organisations than the Israel lobby. In this country, there are perhaps 50 or 60 Israel lobby groups. How many Zionist groups are there in this country, do you think? How many? How many is all of them? 500. Do I hear a higher or lower? I would say, conservatively speaking, there are around 2,000 Zionist groups in this country. Now, why is that important? It's important because, yes, the Israel lobby has an outsized influence on government policy in this country and other countries, but that's not the only point of the Zionist movement. The point of the Zionist movement is to organise genocide. And every organisation of the Zionists in this country is involved in organising genocide. How do they do that? They are involved in radicalising a cadre of youngsters who become youth, who become adults, into believing that they have a birthright to the land of Palestine. There is no such birthright for any British Jew, for any American Jew. There's no such birthright. It's entirely made up, as Ramsey was saying. And how do they do this? First of all, they get them at, I was going to say school, but they get them at nursery, from 3 and 4 years old. Then at school, in primary schools, in secondary schools, in youth groups, with free trips to Israel to come to believe in the genocidal ideology of Zionism. These are all sorts of processes which result in radicalisation of young British Jews, many of whom have their heads turned to believe in the racist ideology of Zionism. There are schools in this country, there are 160 Jewish schools in this country. Many of them, maybe 40 or 50, explicitly say on their websites that they are Zionist schools. These are schools which every morning they don't play God Save the Queen and sing God Save the Queen. The King, is it? Is it the King now? They sing in the morning Hatikva, the national anthem of the Zionist entity. There's a school in Birmingham, this is my favourite example, a Jewish school in Birmingham where they sing Hatikva in the morning, where 20% of the pupils are Jewish. 80%, more than 80% of the pupils are what religion? They're Muslims. The King David School in Birmingham. 80% of the kids in that school are being forced to sing the Israeli national anthem every morning and are being inculcated with the ideology of Zionism. That is a real problem in this society. We're radicalising young Jewish kids into believing that they have a right to steal Palestinian land. That radicalisation process goes on through youth groups, where let's say every 16-year-old Jewish kid in this country is offered a free trip to Israel, and they're invited to join something called the Massa Journey Programme. What does the Massa Journey Programme do? It takes them to Israel, and it invites them and allows them to join up in the Israel Defence Forces. There are hundreds of kids who've grown up in this country who've gone to fight in Gaza. There are hundreds of Argentinian kids, US kids, kids from all over from France who are currently fighting in Gaza, killing children and killing civilians, as well as, of course, sometimes killing fighters. This is a real problem for this society. It's not just a problem of what happens in Palestine, but of course that's the end result of it. It's a problem of all the Zionist organizations in this country sending money to the IDF, sending money to the illegal settlements, sending money to undermine the Al-Aqsa Mosque in East Al-Quds. That's a real problem. So that's the reason we have to talk about Zionism, and not just about the Israel lobby, and talk about ending Zionism. How do we end Zionism? Sometimes people get a little bit uncertain about this. Are we calling for ending Jewish people's lives? Well, no, of course not. We're talking about dismantling an ideology. Just like the settler colonial ideology in the north of Ireland has to be dismantled, just like the settler colonial ideology in Algeria was dismantled when the French left, and indeed, of course, in South Africa too. To dismantle Zionism means that Zionist organizations, let's take the Union of Jewish Students, a formerly Zionist organization, for it to represent all Jewish students, including anti-Zionist students, it has to disaffiliate, resign from the Zionist movement. How difficult is that? How many lives will have to be laid down by the Union of Jewish Students in order to do that? Well, none. All they've got to do is have a vote and resign. And no longer will they be part of the Zionist movement. They will commit to representing all Jewish students, as all Jewish communal bodies should do. Every Jewish communal body in this country should resign from the Zionist movement and commit to representing all Jews, not just Zionist Jews. There are, of course, many other Zionist organizations whose only function is to contribute to genocide. They don't have any communal function. The Jewish National Fund, the United Jewish Israel Appeal, many hundreds of these organizations. These need to be ended. They need to be removed from the charitable register, and they need to cease to exist. The organizations need to cease to exist. That's why I say that it's important that we think about and understand what Zionism is. It's not just some abstract set of ideas, it's a practical movement for encouraging and enacting genocide currently happening in Gaza. So I think that the point here is that we need to talk more about Zionism and not less, more about the Zionist movement and not less. And we need to understand that there will not be a resolution to this issue of Palestine until, yes, the Zionist entity is dismantled and we have one Palestinian state from the river to the sea, but also we need to dismantle the Zionist movement in this country. This is an urgent task. They are currently sending money to the IDF. There's an organization called the Association for the Wellbeing of Israel Soldiers, run by a Christian Zionist, former British military officer, Richard Kemp, and it currently sends money to, well, one of the things they did 2 years ago was in the Nakab, the Negev desert. They funded and created and built a swimming pool for occupation forces. This swimming pool is only a few miles away from the death camp which the IDF is running for Palestinians, also in the Negev or Nakab desert. So this is an urgent thing that we have to do, which we can do here. We need to start to decommission the Zionist movement in this country, just like the cutting edge of the anti-Zionist movement is doing in this country. And by that I mean the absolutely fantastic activities of Palestine Action, who almost every day, it seems now, are smashing up Israeli arms firms and decommissioning them and stopping them from supplying arms to Gaza to kill children. So what I would say is, we need to have a much more effective, widespread anti-Zionist movement in this country, which takes effective material action against the Zionist movement, including its arms firms, and one brick by one brick dismantles all of the Zionist movement's racist infrastructure in this country to help with the liberation, finally, of Palestine. Thank you.
Palestine! Palestine! Palestine will be free! Palestine will live forever! Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
I beat you to it, Tess! Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much. And I just